Thank you all so much. Good evening, everyone. As Menashe mentioned, I'm in the innovative planning pathway, and this is my connect with my audience speech. And I had to talk about something unfamiliar, as Menashe mentioned, and I know I've gotten to know all of you pretty well. Of course, I don't know where all of you have lived and what all of you have done throughout your whole lives, but I thought I would talk a little bit about my time living in South Louisiana. And I'm going to talk about living in what I consider the true South. And I'm hoping this is unfamiliar to most of you. I presume most of you haven't lived there, but maybe someone has, even for a short time. I've lived in various places in the Midwest, South, and East Coast, and I've loved living all over the place. So I'm going to focus on my experiences having lived in Baton Rouge for 2 years. And while I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did when I was there, I'm also going to pepper in some tips and advice for living in a new place, any new place. So hopefully it's a little bit about my experience and also some things that you can take with you. So I'll tell you why I was there and what I did, socially, what it was like for me, and how to make friends in unfamiliar places, and how to find the hidden gems and maximize your time in any new city. The way I ended up in Baton Rouge, which was after a fellowship that I had done in Chicago, I had seen a job posting that I believe my old law professor sent me when I was in Cleveland about this job with a law professor at Louisiana State University. And I remember thinking, Baton Rouge, that's crazy. It turns out I applied for the job and got it. And it was a wonderful experience. But a few months after I got there, Hurricanes Katrina and Rita hit. Now, while Hurricane Katrina, so this is 2005, while Hurricane Katrina wasn't so bad for Baton Rouge itself, it really changed the population. A lot of people had fled from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, which is about an hour west, slightly north, and traffic became an issue and all these sorts of things. Rita hit us more directly and at night, and that one was a little bit scary. But what it did was it sort of changed the focus of the work that I was doing with my professor, because he ended up having to absorb a lot of the students that were displaced from Louisiana. So he really had to kind of shift gears, but it turned out to be a great experience. We got a nice publication out of it. It was a good time. But what I want to really tell you about is some of the fun stuff. What do you do in a new place? I ended up joining a kickball team. So in the early 2000s, this was really a big popular thing. And my best friend who lives here that I grew up with in Pennsylvania said, when you move down there, you should join a kickball team. You'll make a lot of friends. Sure enough, at work, when I was at work, I saw on the job posting board, the electronic board, that someone was starting a kickball league. So I ended up joining, and through this, I found a lot of my like-minded friends. Another thing that we did was when my parents were visiting one time, we went to a shop, and it turned out the owners were Jewish, Southern Jews, and they immediately befriended us. And through them, I met a good friend as well. So I found a group of people similar ages. Some are local to the area, and some were there for graduate school, but had grown up in other places and were at Louisiana State University. So my tip for you is find an activity that you like and keep at it. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself to new people, strike up conversations with strangers. It will turn out to be a wonderful experience. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about is the hidden gems in a new place, and specifically in South Louisiana. My tip for you is to do touristy things, the things that you would find in a guidebook, the things that, your friend comes back from a trip and says, I did this thing and I did that thing. It turns out a lot of the locals have never done some of the things that the tourists do, which is funny to think about. I'm sure some local DC friends have never been to certain museums and these sorts of things. It's the same in the South, but encourage them to join you. It turns out you'll have a lot of fun together. So taking advantage of your time in a new place, especially if it's time limited, is super important. So one example in South Louisiana is I did a lot of swamp tours, and that's right, swamp tours. And the first one I found was I was with my family, and we found this really great swamp tour near a town called Breaux Bridge in Louisiana, in Cajun Country, Louisiana. And there was this tour in this, I think it was called Cypress Island Swamp. And this guy, Butch Gouchereau, who lived down there and grew up there, takes tours, takes people in his boat, about 5 or 6 people on the boat. So it's not one of these massive operations. And he takes you around, and you see the most magnificent birds, spoonbills and egrets and herons and all different kinds of things, including nutria and alligators. And that was just fantastic. And when friends would visit me, because a lot of friends were like, you're in a cool place, I'm going to come visit you, we went on swamp tours all over the area. But that one was my favorite. And there was another place, which I don't think is around anymore, but they served the best Cajun breakfast and they had Zydeco music in the morning. And so you would dance with total strangers and it was nothing weird and romantic, but old men in their monochromatic suits would come up to you and start dancing with you. It was just the most fun. And I absolutely loved that. So I had a lot of great experiences there. And the other thing I want to tell you is Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is not just for tourists. This is a cultural thing deeply embedded in South Louisiana. And it's a whole season, as I learned. There are parades, there are balls, and a lot of them have themes, and people dress up and plan their costumes for months and months, and their floats, and they throw beads, and you don't have to do anything lewd to get the beads. You just have to scream and yell. And it is just the most fun. And so I encourage everyone to go, even if it's not New Orleans. There's Mardi Gras parade in Baton Rouge on a particular Saturday. And once I went out to the countryside for a country Mardi Gras, and the outfits are completely different. And I remember they ride around with a chicken. They hold up a chicken, and I think there's this whole history where they have to barter for a chicken, and then they ride the chicken down the parade and hold up the chicken, and then they cook a big gumbo for the community. This is one of the traditions. It was so fantastic. So in sum, if you find yourself in a southern city for any period of time, or really any new city for that matter, do the things that you like to do or that you've always done, or new things that you're interested in. Find these activities, do them. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself to new people and make new friends, and take advantage of all the fun local touristy stuff. You won't regret it. Thank you.